Welcome to 10 Disciplines of Disco Music Production. In this video, what you're going to see and learn from me are 10 disciplines that are required for disco music production. Whether or not that's producing disco music from the 70s or producing modern day disco house, all of these techniques apply to that. Starting with the drums, let's go. So to produce a disco house beat, the only way to do that is to combine both an original beat from the 70s with modern day house beats. That's the only way you're going to get a really solid, effective, convincing drum pattern. So all you have to do is find a live disco drum loop like this. And then sometimes you have to combine it with another one like this, where it's got that double kick underneath, so it gives it that bounce. And if you put the two together, then you put on some tambourines to give it a bit of a swing, a bit of a shake. Then a house kick. Then some house hats. Some claps, hand claps, live hand claps. And then what you do is you put on like a hat clap loop on top of that, like a tops with a closed hat in there. And there you go. So the elements for that is use a couple of live old drum beats from the 70s, a couple of loops. You could break this up yourself and play them in, but sometimes it's quick and easy just to grab a loop like so. Get a modern day kick and your hats, your claps. So the key there, the important thing there is to combine the old with the new. The second important part of a disco record is the percussion. You've got to get some real tough sounding congas and bongas and some triangles and all sorts of other little knickknacks. The best thing to do, especially in Ableton, is get a percussion spirit kit or a percussion core kit. This one is the spirit kit and it's got some heavy congas and the emphasis is to build on your drums and give it that real live raw swing like this. And it's really simple stuff to do. All you've got to do is just program a few things in. Even if you don't like playing them, the important thing is to just try and program in as many patterns as you can, like so. And obviously, if they come out like that, you drag it over a bit and give it a bit of a swing like so. And you could even copy that pattern down there and do it the same on those two. Or, you know, lower. Move those slightly across into that gap there. Like that, you see. To give it that live swing, you can experiment with congas as much as you want and throw things about. It makes no difference whatsoever. There is no right or way wrong of doing it, as long as you get a little groove going like this. And there you go. Next up on the agenda is the bass. Without the bass, you're nothing. So I have two different styles of bass here that I'm going to show you. The first one is the more twangy sort of bass, which you could do for a more funky sort of disco record. And what I've used is the contact player and the Scarby Rickenbacker bass. And this is a bit of a rock sort of bass, but it's got that kind of heavy sort of twang on it, which I'm going to show you a little pattern now, and I'm going to press record and just give you an example of that. So let's go. There we go. Throw that in there. I'm going to quantize that. I'm going to push that up to the F and then I'm going to loop it. One note bass pattern. You could extend those notes there, but you want to get that kind of twang out of a bass. You don't want to use something that's really flat, but also you want to have something with a bit of characteristic to it. So that kind of bass there is your one note bass. Or we could get rid of that altogether and we could use a bass out of the Ableton pack, and we could use the slap bass here. Give it a bit more of an 80s sort of feel, and we could go. And then we could use a double octave bass, which means you go from one octave to the other. So one G to the next G. like so, and just bounce off each other. I'm no bass player, but that's the kind of funky bass I like. There you go, just like that. And we have a bass that has bounces from one low octave up to the next octave. We quantize it. And there you go, there's your bass. Next up is the guitar, and if you're fortunate enough to be able to play the guitar, then crack on to the next one because you don't need this one. However, for people like me that cannot play disco guitar, the best thing to get is a plug-in, and the one that I use on here is called the Scarby Funk Guitarist, and this is packed solid with loads of different techniques, loads of different variations and styles of a guitar player in the funk disco section. So all you do is you assign each chord, whichever it is you want out of there, onto a key, and you play it in via MIDI, and then it loops and plays around the chord you want to use. It's really good, it's really simple. It's a bit fiddly, this software is, but once you get the hang of it, you've got it. So obviously with my bass that I recorded earlier, which was in the G minor 7 for the first part, and then it goes into a B flat. There. So I decided to put in for this part a G minor 7 guitar riff, and then in that last section where the bass changes here, goes up, I put it into a B flat, and it goes like this. So there you go, there's the guitar. Next on the list is the all-important Fender Rhodes. Now, you can have a normal piano, you can have an acoustic piano, but to get that warmth, richness, you want to have a Fender Rhodes. All I'm using on this one is an EP piano called the Mark II, which is built into Ableton. There's a whole load of brilliant Rhodes keyboards out there that you can use. Now, what I've done with this, I have added on the Rhodes V-Pan, which is basically the vibrato, which gives it that wobble, like so. It just bends the sound a bit, just wobbles it and makes it vibrate, you know, hence the name vibrato. So all we need to do is put in a chord for that, and we've got the Rhodes. And if we solo that, you will be able to see exactly what I've done. Just played the same chord all the way across and just changed the root notes. And if we combine that with the guitar and the bass, and that's the all-important electric piano, aka the Fender Rhodes. One of the most important ingredients to give a track a variation and to give it some power is to have a lead line, which basically usually means a mono synth lead line, where you can only play one note at a time rather than a polysynth. So there's 1,000,001 of them out there. The one that I'm using today is the Viking Synth, which is a free VST, by the way, for Mac and PC, so grab it. And in here is a synth sound called the Switched On Soft Lead, and it sounds like this on its own. And I'm modulating that with the wheel to make it give it that bend. And I'm just going to play this over a solo section of the Rhodes, the percussion and the kick. So we've got our track and it drops like this. And that is a quick, rough demo of how to do a lead line. But the important thing for a lead line is to give the track variation when you're doing a solo. So that is the lead line. Go and check out as many different soft synths as you can where you have a variety of lead lines on there, usually in the mono section. Many disco records back in the 70s used an orchestra, and one of the key features of those was a staccato string, which basically means short, and it goes like this. Quick, short stabs in disco. So you've got a disco records that will go... and they bent the sound quickly. Obviously, it's very difficult to do with a pitch wheel, but it can be done. and give it a bit of character. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over the solo again and show you just kind of the sort of thing you can do in disco house and modern day disco production. And it goes like this. And so on. Obviously, I'm just jamming there, so that is the idea, is to use a staccato sound. What I've used here are the ones built into Ableton's orchestral strings, and you go, and just use 2 octaves at the same time, and it gives off a much richer texture. So there's your strings. One of the main important features of any disco record, particular high energy and more electronic disco, is the arpeggio. This one is the classic Donna Summer sounding, and it sounds like this. And all I've done there is taken that from the classic Z3TA synth, and it's called the Italo 80s. Now you can get a whole load of arpeggios always built into Ableton with their presets. So the important thing would be to take a very simple bass sound, and I'm going to take for this one off the Tyrell. I'm going to put this down here like so. I'm going to choose the preset from here. It's going to be Boogie Bass 3. I'm going to change it to a poly. I am going to go into it like so. I am going to go to MIDI effects, arpeggiator, ubiquitous. I'm going to pull that down to there. I'm going to change it from con to diverge. I'm going to make sure the gate is 50. That is set to there, and 2 steps. And it kind of reminds me of Rolls Royce, Is It Love You're After? That kind of bass line. And it will go like this. Also use the wheel to make it modulate like so. So the important thing would be to play that, and then on top of that add your lead line, which you could go back to. So if we was to record this in like so. So it's down low in the mix. And you get all really cosmic and spacey. And so on. Very rough, but you get the idea. So that's the arpeggio. Another important aspect of disco boogie, especially in the early 80s, is the synth bass. Now, on the Tyrell, which we just did the arpeggio on, I am going to show you how to use the boogie bass. I've changed it to a poly, I've turned the cutoff down and the res quite high at about 6.5, and we're going to have this sound. You know that sound came out on a load of records in the early 80s. Instead of having a live bass, you could sometimes have a synth bass like so. And go up the octaves and make a riff. So there you go. You can turn a arpeggio style bass into a synth bass and drop the octaves. If we put on the original disco drums with this, take away the Rhodes and just play the percussion, you'd start your track like that. And if you go up the octaves on the boogie bass, what you can do is turn it into a lead synth as opposed to a bass synth. Put some delay on it, drown it in delay and feedback, and just go. So you can get 2 for the price of 1 there, and that's your boogie bass. And the final element of a disco record is to have the drum fills. Now, the way to create these very easily is to get 2 snares. One is higher pitched than the other, like so. like that, and play them against each other. So every time the track has a transition, you've got your drums playing. At the very end, you'll have a transition where you do a drum fill that goes like so. And I'm going to show you how to do it now. So I'm going to press record from here, and I'm going to hit the transition like so. And if we open that up and we just do a quantize on that, it's a very simple short pattern of 2 snares, 1 high, 1 low. So you go, and then to make it just that little bit more perfect, you get a crash and you put that on the end of the drum fill. So it plays like this. And that helps take the track into the next section. So there you go. There's 10 elements that are vital to disco production, whether you're making old school disco or disco house. Taking these elements are what will make your track stand out and give it that authentic disco feel. I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you very much, and don't forget to comment in the box below. Take care.